40 for Rateable Crest Titans.
Welcome to the special stage rally show in association with the Mini Rally Challenge. As you can see, we're at the finish of the UK's biggest rally, the Anglo Caledonian. The first running 133 miles across 16 stages across 2 days, across 2 countries. What an epic marathon that has been. But first, we've got action from the Welsh Rally Championship before we head to the Circuit Rally Championship. So let's kick off with the Wyedean. The Wyedean Rally marks the end of the season for the Pirelli Welsh Rally Championship, and there were still plenty of battles to play out on the Forest of Dean stages. Taking the early lead will be Matthew Hurst and Declan Deer, looking to make it another title to add to their previous ones. Closest to the reigning champions at this stage will be local crew Nick Elsmore and Pauline Nash. Nick himself enjoying a couple of wins himself over the years at this rally. But at the moment, the Evo was no match for the Skoda. They lie in second place. Third at this stage were Tom Llewellyn and Ross Whittock. The Escort pair going well, leading the class and rounding out the podium positions at this stage as well, 23 seconds back from the Evo up ahead. Close behind though were Bob Morgan and A.D. Williams. They'd been up in third on the previous stage, but things had changed in stage 4, and they'd end the first half of the day 4th overall. Just 4 seconds back from Llewellyn though, the fight on. Ben Friend and Cliffy Simmons were clearly trying, as they always do, and they'd be close behind on the times as well. 5th place for the pair now. They were out in their old car as well, saving the new one for the upcoming Anglo-Caledonian Rally. And for Simon Rogers and James Howe, it would be 6th overall. They were going well in the class with second place there as well. Not quite keeping up with Elsmore up ahead, but holding their own in second place. They'd hold an advantage as well over Craig Jones and Ian Taylor in both the class and overall leaderboards. The Evo pair just 13 seconds back at this stage in the rally. And indeed, it was close to 4th place in the class as well, with Jeff Smith and Joe Dunn taking that position for now, themselves only 9 seconds back from the Evo up ahead. Colin Griffiths and Marcus Morgan break up the all-Evo trend in the top of the W13 class. They end the morning stages with 9th place overall in the Subaru, 10 seconds back from Smith up ahead. And rounding out the top 10 leaderboard at this stage were Ian and Dan Evans. The pair out in the Escort and going well. 3rd place in the W9 class at this stage as well. As we could perhaps have reasonably expected, there were a number of crews trying a little too hard on the morning's opening stage. One of those being Freddie Camp and Stephen Spear in the Escort. They come into this corner too hot, putting the car off the road. Luckily, with a bit of pushing, they were able to get back on the stage again and on their way. Another crew to get things wrong, though, into this corner will be Rob Wilson and Martin Haggett. They hit the bank with a bit of force, causing the car to come to a halt for a short time after passing our cameras. They do manage to get going again, though, ending the morning in 15th. So, with the fast and eventful morning stages complete, here's how the leaderboard is shaping up at the top of the Wyedean stages. Back on to these classic stages for the afternoon then. And before we take a look at the final results, let's take a look back at how the class results were decided. And finishing in 25th overall will be enough to get Andrew Stokes and Johnny Tad Evans a 2nd place in the W8 class in the Escort. Finishing just ahead of them, surely the Datsun a distant memory now. It was a similar Escort of Jeremy Eason and Mike Reynolds, taking the class victory by just 12 seconds. In the W7 class, there'll be a bit of a bigger gap. Taking 2nd there were Paul Holmes and Elizabeth Beasley. They end the rally in 52nd on the overall leaderboard. But we'd be up as high as 38th overall before we see the W7 class winner. Peter Hinton and Dean Mitchell having a great weekend on the gravel to take that class victory in the Escort. Just the one crew in the W6 class this weekend. So victory there goes to Graham Thatcher and Tim Samuel, who piloted their triumph to 64th place on those overall results. There were no more dramas to report through the afternoon stages for Freddie Camp and Stephen Spear, keeping their nose clean and keeping the car going in the right direction to take second place in the W5 class, but down in 71st overall. The winners of that class were not that far up the road though, only one position on the overall leaderboard in fact. So for Neville Breach and Martin Corbett it would be the class win, taking victory by just over a minute at the end of the day. The W4 class, meanwhile, will be spread out a little through the leaderboard. Mark Christopher and Jasmine Westcott taking second in the class from 66th overall. And it would be a flying Sam Mason and James Seymour ending the event with the class win as well as a fantastic 22nd on the overall results as well. We'd see a bit of a family battle playing out in the W2 class, but coming out second in the class was Luke Watts and Matt Rogers, taking the MG to an impressive 26th overall. But it will be Nigel and Kaz Jenkins who round out their season in style with a class win in that familiar Green Nova, taking 14th place overall as well as that class win. We'd see battle of the BMWs in the W12 class, and coming second in that fight were Daniel Chester and Stephen Davey, second in the class as well as 33rd overall. And finishing a few positions above them would be the eventual class winners, Andrew and Jamie Lee Fox. They take the W12 class win from 20th overall. In the W11 class, it was second for Rob Dennis and Andrew Boswell, taking 16th place on the overall timesheets as well. And taking that class win would be Liam Griffiths and Daniel James, also finishing just outside the top 10 overall with 11th place. Onto the W10 class, and it was Robert Smith and Frankie Hillman taking second in the class in their Mark II Escort, 28th place overall as well. But taking the class victory would be Chris Butcher and Jonathan Hawkins, a long overdue outing for the Corsa, and they've been trying all day long, pushing the car well. And it showed with a 24th position overall finish and that class win in the bag. In the W1 class, it was Joel Lewis and Scott Husbands managing second place by the end of the event in the Peugeot. And finishing just above them on the overall leaderboard in 72nd position would be the Mini of Craig King and Russell Joseph, taking the W1 class win. These stages always throw up plenty of drama and fierce competition. Onto the top 10 overall finishers. With that in mind, it will be 10th place overall for Ian and Dan Evans. The Escort pair taking third in the W9 class as well with that finish. And in a top 10 dominated by the W13 class runners, it would be Colin Griffiths and Marcus Morgan, who take 5th in that class, ending the event 9th overall. Rob Wilson and Martin Haggett overcome their morning's issues, shall we say, to be kind, to end the event with 8th. They'd have been wondering what could have been had they not ground to a halt on this morning's opening stage, but they'd still be happy enough with that finish. For Craig Jones and Ian Taylor, it will be 3rd place in the class by the end of the rally. No change in that position, in fact, throughout the afternoon stages, consistent and fast. And just ahead of them and marking his last ever rally, so he says, we all say that from time to time, don't we, would be Simon Rogers and James Howe, keeping hold of that 2nd position in the class to the finish, as well as taking 6th place overall. For Ben Friend and Cliff Simmons, it will be 5th. They were going well. That result good enough for 2nd place in the W9 class as well. And that would be a class win that they'd miss out on by just 30 seconds, with Tom Llewellyn and Ross Whittock taking class victory. But frustratingly for them, they do drop back from that final podium position into 4th by the end of the day. So all of that means there's a change to 3rd place. We see Bob Morgan and A.D. Williams moving back into the podium positions overall by the finish of the rally, taking 2nd place in the W14 class in the process. No change though through the afternoon for Nick Elsmore and Pauline Nash. They'd be happy with that second place overall. A good end to the rally, although not the victory. They'd certainly proven their pace. That means that it is victory for Matthew Hurst and Declan Deer. It's a decisive one as well that secures them the Pirelli Welsh Rally Championship title as well in 2024 once again. So congratulations to the pair. After an up and down season, things certainly came good in the end with the help of that new car. With the Wyedean Rally complete, here's a quick reminder of how those overall results shaped up. The highly anticipated Anglo-Caledonian Rally with an epic two-day route got off to a challenging start, with day one of the rally suffering with the snow and bad wind of Storm Bert. That would be a tricky start to the event for the first crew on the road, understandably, Alan Carmichael and Jane Nichol. And they were nervous, acting as the plough for those behind, but they still somehow managed to lead the way on day one. Coming into this final double-header round of the British Historic Rally Championship, Seb Perez had already been crowned the champion. That took the pressure off, and he'd have Dale Bowen alongside this weekend in the Porsche. And they'd make a good start as well, despite the conditions. They were lying in second place overnight. Third at the end of a grueling day and somehow wondering how they made it through were Paul Thompson and Josh Davison. They were out in the escort but were a little way off the crews up ahead for now. And if ever Dave Henderson was wondering why on earth he'd swapped from four-wheel drive, this was the day. He'd have Will Atkins alongside for this weekend, and the pair were going extremely well together. They end the first tricky day in fourth overall. Just 36 seconds back from them would be Matthew Stroud and Joshua Carr. They were pushing the crew ahead as much as possible, looking to climb the results on day two, which they, as well as we, were hoping would be a little more clement out there. An impressive sixth overall at this stage will be Tim Rogers and Stefan Arndt in the ex-Fiesta Trophy ST. They hadn't been in that position all day though, and in fact, the pair had led the rally outright for the opening couple of stages. A stunning return to the seat in a Group N Fiesta after a number of years away. Day two would be a much kinder day on the stages, and indeed by the side of them. The weather improving, the grip returning, and some beautiful scenes out there for the Scottish leg of the rally as well. There'd be some change in the leaderboard results as well, with Rudy Lancaster and Guy Weaver taking fifth place by the end of the event. No change for David Henderson and Will Atkins though. They take the G2 class win, keeping hold of their fourth place on the overall order as well. A strong end to the weekend for the pair. Onto the podium places, and there wouldn't be any change to the results at all. Paul Thompson and Josh Davison managing to keep hold of that position to the finish. A great end to what had been a pretty tough weekend out there on the stages. No major issues for Seb Perez and Dale Bowen, apart from reporting a broken gear shifter. Didn't seem to stop them from holding on to that second place overall, a mere blemish on an otherwise impeccable record this season, taking the win in the Historics and ending that championship winning season on a high. But taking the overall victory will be Alan Carmichael and Jane Nichol. Alan's biggest win to date as well, so that will be even more of a result when the pair reach the finish, with many stories of snowy excursions to tell. So the inaugural Anglo-Caledonian Rally complete, and the fans absolutely satisfied. The results at the top ended up like this. We'll have a more detailed review of this epic rally coming up on our social media in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for that soon. The Circuit Rally Championship got underway again. Winter rallying is back for a new season, and with a new sponsor on board in the form of ProTyre. And as usual, the crews would descend on Oulton Park for the Salford Van Hire Neil Howard stages for the opening round. There'd be some new and returning challengers on the entry. Some of those new faces being James Ford and Neil Shanks, who lead the way over the morning's stages to take an advantage of 10 seconds going into the midday service. It could have been more, but they do get a 10-second penalty for hitting a chicane. Reigning champions Michael Igoe and Will Atkins are back to defend that title, and it was going well so far. They were second place overall at this stage, but that didn't matter as far as the championship was concerned. James Ford not registered for points at this opening round. One crew who certainly do matter as far as the championship is concerned and are registered for points though are John and Alex Stone, and they were going well over the morning stages in the Polo GTI R5 to end stage 4 in third place overall. They were only 33 seconds back from Igoe at this stage too. Former champions John Griffiths and Emma Morrison returned to the series this season to try and claim that #1 spot again after missing out to Igoe last season. They come armed with a new car as well for the season, this lovely Skoda Fabia, and they would be hoping that it is an improvement over the Fiesta R5 that took them to second overall last season. Ryan Burns and Harry Walshaw, meanwhile, have limited experience in the Rally 2 Fiesta, coming from the Corsa at the start of 2024 and competing on just a small number of events so far this season. They were going well. They end the morning in 5th. The rapid Darien pair, Joshua and Tamsin Davey, were back for another go at the title in Class D. They were never going to be the fastest around a slippery rally school stage or the gravel sections, but they were pushing hard on the rest of the circuit parts of the stage where they could. 6th place to end the morning. We saw Kyron Hankin and James Swallow switch to the Citroen towards the end of last season, and the pair had a number of rallies now under their belts between them. Now time to get used to the car's potential. They were putting in some good times to lie in 7th. And sticking close to them on the leaderboard were Mike and Lewis English. They were 12 seconds back from Hankin, but 10 of those were a penalty for cutting the course when they passed a fellow crew in frustration on the rally school section of the stage. The first of the Class C crews on the results would be Will Owen and Chloe Thomas. This pair always pedalling the Escort well, so it's no surprise to see them inside the top 10 overall in 9th. The times throughout the leaderboard were all very close as well, setting up a thrilling afternoon for that top 10 battle. And rounding out the top 10 were Adrian Spencer and Mark Hewitt. The Subaru pair also leading the way in Class B as well with that position in their WRC replica Impreza. So the morning's complete here at the opening round at Oulton Park. The results at the top shaping up like this. We head back out onto the varied Oulton Park stages for the afternoon session here at the opening round of the Circuit Rally Championship. And here's a look at the classes before we take a look at the overall leaderboard. There'd be no change for Matthew Faulkner and Liam Howard. They take 3rd place in Class F. There was, however, change in the other positions. 2nd place now taken by Owen and Glyn Thomas. The pair jumping up the leaderboard and into that position with a charge through the afternoon stages. And we'd also have a new leader on these former WRC stages, with previous 2nd place crew James Durkin and James McGough taking advantage of the loss of the previous class leaders to take victory this weekend. It was a different looking podium in Class E as well. We see Louis Baines drop down the order, being replaced here by Chris Woodhouse and Lucy Wilding in that position by the finish of the rally. Ben and Andrew Wilkinson, yet again without a scratch on that glorious car, would add some more penalty to their total through the afternoon, taking them up to 30 seconds. That would affect their result as well. They end the rally in 2nd, but with only 13 seconds to the class leaders. But taking victory in Class E this weekend were Daniel Poole and Laura Marshall. A strong result for the pair, who stayed out of trouble and took that class win with relative ease. No change in Class D, apart from the overall times, and we'd see Jackson Willett and Jordan Mallon taking the 3rd place spot in the results here at Oulton Park. In Class C, it was a similar story too. James Garner and Jordan Joins keeping hold of that place in the Darien to finish just a minute back in the class by the end of the rally. In Class B, we see a move up to third place for Christian Davies and Ethan Dredowski. A good finish to the day for the Fiesta Proto pair. And what of our Manx travellers, Steve Colley and Kirsty Duke? Well, they were still struggling to keep the Evo pointing in the right direction through the afternoon stages. But despite that, things looked pretty good as far as the leaderboard was concerned. Second place in Class B, 16th overall to end the day. But taking the class win here were Adrian Spencer and Mark Hewitt. A 10-second penalty would cost Adrian a place overall, though, ending the day 14th and just missing out on that 13th spot to David White and Paula Hannon in their Fiesta R5. This weekend would see a very special treat for Stephen Brown and Paul Stringer. They compete here at Oulton Park in a Polo R5 instead of the Micra. And considering the lack of seat time in a car like this, things went very well indeed. It wasn't without the spins and the sideways, of course, but that showboating was surely to be expected. He does it in the Micra. The pair finished in 12th place overall. On to the top 10 then, and it will be a 10th place finish for Philip House and Nick Beaumont. They know these stages well. It was a position good enough for second in Class D for the Escort pair. Finishing just ahead of them on the overall timesheets will be Stefan Davies and Ben Duke. The other Escort pair taking second place in the Class C battle for themselves too. Mike and Lewis English, meanwhile, had picked up another 20-second penalty by the finish for a wrong direction on the route. They'd end the day with 8th place overall, which was still a pretty strong position to finish in. There was no challenging Will Owen and Chloe Thomas for the Class C victory, though. They held on to that for the duration of the rally, taking a pretty convincing victory in the class with 7th place overall as well. Now, you always hear us talk about how close this championship is, but you don't get much closer than this. Kyron Hankin and James Swallow would end the rally on an identical overall time to John Stone. They miss out on that position due to a countback on the stage times, finishing in equal 5th. So that means it's 4th place for John and Alex Stone. Such a close battle throughout the day. Frustratingly for the pair, they do miss out on the overall rally podium. But as far as the championship goes, that means they take 3rd place in the points. And that'll do. Just pipping the Stones to that position were Joshua and Tamsin Davey. They put in some great times. Let's not forget this is not Darien weather, and finished the event just 2 seconds ahead of the Polo pair by the finish of the rally, taking 4th overall, 2nd in the championship points. On to those podium positions then, and it was a well-deserved 3rd place for newcomer Ryan Burns, Harry Walshaw alongside at this end of the leaderboard at least. They had been going well all day, finishing the rally with that final step on the podium and delighted to start their winter rally season on a high. There was frustration, though, for reigning champion Michael Igo, Will Atkins alongside. The overall event win had slipped away from them this time, finishing in 2nd place overall. But as far as the championship goes, that was maximum points to start the defence of their title this season. But taking the overall win this weekend, and perhaps wondering whether they should have registered for championship points, were James Ford and Neil Shanks. A great drive from the pair all day, and such a shame that they haven't chosen to take part in that championship battle through to the next round. So the opening round of the championship is complete. It's maximum points for Igo with that 2nd place, and a good finish too for Davey and Stone to get their seasons and their championship campaigns underway. Round 2 of the Pro Tyre Circuit Rally Championship made its first visit to Cadwell Park and the North Humberside Motor Club run Cadwell Park stages. And fastest out of the blocks will be John Griffiths and Emma Morrison. The previous champions looking to make amends for the non-finish at the opening round and get some points on the board to get their title fight underway. They'd be swapping times throughout the morning with Michael Igo and Will Atkins. The Citroën pair, in fact, leading the way on stage 2, but by the end of the morning stages, they'd be in 2nd. And just 2 seconds back from the lead. The small issue with the Citroën was starting to cause them a bit of concern, though. A strong result last time out saw John and Alex Stone on the podium, and it was looking like this weekend could go the same way. They make it through the morning stages with 3rd place overall, 12 seconds back from the fight at the top of the leaderboard. There was frustration though for Chris West and Keith Hounslow, an intermittent issue with the car, causing them to keep having to stop and restart it. Lucky for them, however, the first stage would be stopped, the times all wiped, and that meant they could start afresh in that Peugeot Maxi from stage 2, ending the morning with 4th overall. The rapid Darien pairing of Joshua and Tamsin Davey were back for this second round and going well once again, as they always do here at Cadwell. A little more would be needed though if they were going to get near the podium again, but they were not far off, 5th overall for now. One crew not having any luck this time out though, with Kyron Hankin and James Swallow. They get caught out in the braking for this hairpin left, putting the car off the road in the assembly area part of the stage. The combination of slippery grass and the unfortunately placed signpost meant that they were unable to get themselves out there to continue. Things had gone pretty well though for Tony Robinson and Mark Jones. This, Tony's first time out in the car since Cadwell Park back in March. So there was some settling in to be done. They were going well though, 6th overall on the leaderboard for now. Alistair Stables and Neil Jones weren't too far behind them on the overall timesheets either, just 2 seconds behind in fact. The Chevette pair pushing well and lying second in the class in that 7th place overall. Tom Stockdale and Neil Chambers, meanwhile, would start the day off how they intended. The BMW pair ending the morning 8th overall, that putting them a position behind Stables in the class and in a good position to chase from as well at this stage. Dave Bellaby was back in the driving seat after co-driving for Kev Proctor, and he'd have Callum Spores alongside this weekend. They were going well in the freshly painted Escort to lie in 9th overall, 2nd in Class D. And rounding out the top 10 will be Chris and Steve Grundy. They were actually on an exact overall time to Bellaby up ahead, sharing the overall and class position as we head into the second half of the rally. Sadly, my own return to rallying wasn't exactly going quite as planned, hitting a concrete fence post on the way to the assembly area and causing too much damage to the Spark Mini to continue. Thankfully, the team would put in a fantastic effort, getting myself and Julia Perry back out for the very next stage to Super Rally, and finish the rally indeed, even if a result was now out of the question. So with the morning complete, here's a reminder of how those overall results on the leaderboard were shaping up. Four more stages to go in the afternoon and the lights were dimming. Before we look though at the overall results, let's take a look at some of the juniors that joined us at this round from the F1000 Junior Rally Club. And one of the first crews to get caught out will be Ollie Poole and Brian Hamilton. They slide wide on this corner, hitting the barrier. Lucky to get away with minimal damage. At the top of the finishers list, it will be 3rd place overall for Henry Kimwell and James Williams. James returning to the juniors where it all began and taking to the co-driver's seat to put something back and give some advice to the next generation. A good pair of hands to have alongside you for sure. A good result as well for the pair, missing out on 2nd place by only 2 seconds after a brilliant fight. And in that 2nd place would be Chester Riley and Victoria Swallow. The pair had actually come into the final stage in 3rd, but that last stage of the event would be the decider for those final steps on the podium. But taking victory in the juniors this weekend will be Charlie Matthewson with Ian Bass alongside. And in fact, with the upcoming final round of the series being cancelled due to Storm Bert, this means that the pair also take the 2024 championship win as well. The first junior to take back-to-back championships. A fitting end to the season for the Matthewson team. Back to the overall rally leaderboard now then, and there'd be no change for our sole Class H runners as Ian Barnes and Delvin Johnson get to the finish with that class win, 38th overall. The same story applied to Class G. David Fox and Paul Price escaping any major issues to end the rally in 28th on the overall leaderboard. And in Class F, there'd be plenty of change as well, as we see a new 3rd place finisher. Martin Smith and Nicky Jackson taking that place through the afternoon stages, as well as 40th overall. There was change at the top as well. Chris and Tom Worrell unable to keep hold of the lead in the class by the finish and having to settle for second place. It was still close though, and for James and David Palmer-Smith, it would be a step up to that class lead. Just 15 seconds of a difference by the end of the event, so a good, close battle in the class. There was a good move up the result sheets in Class E for Ian and John Dove. They were the ones ending the event with the third step on the class podium this weekend. There's no change in second place though in the class. Roger Priestnall and Jamie Forrest keeping hold of that position to the finish of the rally. And as the class winners were working their way up the results, we'll come to those soon. In Class B, it would be a frustrating drop down to third place for this morning's class leaders Gary Carver and Ashley Patterson. They were still going strong though, the difference in the top of the class, just 29 seconds. 10 of those seconds were to Nigel and Louise Wetton, who had piloted that Subaru to second place in the class by the end of the rally, in 18th overall. But taking the class victory, and no doubt in need of a good sleep, will be Mike Stanley and Izzy Holman, gaining that top step through the afternoon and keeping hold of it to the finish. They'd be surely more than happy with that after 2 rallies in the same weekend. We're on to the top 10 then, and rounding out those positions will be Jamie McBain and Jordine Crooks in the Spark Developments 205. They'd end the rally with third in Class D for their efforts as well. Flicking back to Class E, and there'd be a great finish in store for Chris Woodhouse and Lucy Wilding. They take a strong win in the class as well, finishing in 9th overall. For the ever sideways Ken Sturdy, Andrew Funnell alongside, it will be second in Class D in that Avenger. They'd had a good run on Ken's home event to bring the car home in 8th place overall. But taking the hard-fought Class D victory will be Jake Briggs and Harry Walshaw. They'd be a little way off the car in front overall, but they'd be happy with that class win and that overall finish of 7th. Class C had been super competitive this weekend in the Lincolnshire Wolds, and it would be third place to end the rally for Tom Stockdale and Neil Chambers. The BMW pair finishing with 6th on the overall leaderboard as well. Alistair Stables and Neil Jones, meanwhile, had some strong results last season, and this time around things were going pretty well too. The end of the event, second place in Class C, as well as 5th overall to show for their efforts. It was a solid return to the stages for Tony Robinson and Mark Jones as well, as they take second place in Class A, finishing just outside the podium positions in 4th overall in the Skoda. There was drama though for winners last time out and our reigning champions. It was retirement for Michael Igoe and Will Atkins. They get caught out on slicks when the rain came down, putting the car off the road, causing too much damage to the Citroën to continue. So that means we have 3 crews left and 3 places to fill here at Cadwell Park. And for John and Alex Stone, it will be that 3rd place. This result means that with 2 consistent podium finishes, the pair are now leading the championship after round 2. Chris West and Keith Hounslow fight their way back up the order after a slower start after those issues earlier on with the car cutting out. They get up as far as 2nd place, but it would be some good points for their season total so far, and that was what they were focused on at this point. And righting the wrongs from last time out, it was victory for John Griffiths and Emma Morrison. Safe to say they were getting used to that new Skoda now, and if they can do this at the next round, it looks good for a championship campaign. So a dramatic round 2 here at Cadwell Park complete. Here's a reminder of those final overall results at the North Humberside Cadwell Park stages. Round 3 of the Pro Tyre Circuit Rally Championship headed to Donington Park for the Tegua Donington Rally, and thankfully, although the conditions were wet, it wasn't the ice and snow that we faced here last year. Fastest by the end of the morning stages would be John Griffiths and Emma Morrison, laying down a marker by 23 seconds after the first 3 stages in the Skoda. And that lead will be over reigning champions Michael Igoe and Will Atkins. The pair had been leading the rally for the first 2 stages, but a 30-second penalty for hitting a chicane will put them back down into 2nd, a fight-back position going into the afternoon. For John and Alex Stone, it will be third place overall and a good soundtrack inside the car. Queen, wasn't it, boys? A position they were getting somewhat used to being in now. They did get held up slightly on the first stage of the day, but things overall were shaping up well for the polo pair. Sean and Colin Quigley were a late entry, having been on the reserve list of this bumper entry here for the Donington Park stages, and it would be fourth place for now. They were 37 seconds back from Stone at this stage. A little way to go if they were going to get onto the podium at this round. Mark Jasper and Don Wyatt know how to bring the crowd. The Metro out once again. A great sight and sound it is on the stages as well. They have a small altercation with the stage furniture along the way, which would take off the front splitter. But apart from that, things going pretty well in fifth. It was hardly Darian weather, but Joshua and Tamsin Davey were making mincemeat of the stages. It was the lead in Class D, the pair the fastest of the two-wheel drive crews at this stage, and looking at picking up a good haul of championship points from this round if they could continue at this pace. Just behind them, and an impressive performance it was as well, were Josh Payton and Jamie Vaughan. It was close, just 3 seconds between them and the Darien pair at this stage. The Escort pair sliding their way into 7th overall. Tony Robinson and Paul Spooner didn't quite get the start that they'd had at Cadwell for the previous round, but they were still going strong, ending the morning 8th place on the overall leaderboard in the Skoda. 21 seconds would be the difference in Class C, and Tom Stockdale and Neil Chambers take second in that class behind Payton and Vaughan up ahead. The BMW pair were only 8 seconds behind Robinson as well. Another impressive two-wheel drive performance here at the third round. And rounding out the top 10 would be Tony and Martin Davies. They'd also be lying second in Class D as well, with the times that they were setting out there on the stages. Never mind Darien weather, this pair were charging hard. Just taking a look down some of the classes outside of the top 10 leaderboard, it will be second place in Class B for David Jenkins and Philip Hopkins. They take the Evo to 11th place overall. Phil in the co-driver's seat and reportedly enjoying himself as well. Third place in that class will be Ian Ross and John Petrie in the rallyschool.co.uk Subaru, just a few positions back overall in 17th at this stage. The lead of Class C was of course being fought out inside the top 10, but for third place in the class, Clive Hitchman and Jeremy Griffith, it would be 14th overall at this stage. In Class D, it was third place in the class for Alfie Threlfall and Patrick Cross. Going well, moving up the leaderboard and lying in 13th overall as well in his second ever rally in the Civic. In Class E, we'd see an early lead for Chris Woodhouse and Lucy Wilding. The Peugeot pair open up a very good advantage in that position as well. Their lead was over this man, Harry Pinchin, Colin Jenkins alongside. 1400 legend Darren Pinchin here to watch the battles unfold as well. They take second in the class, 27th overall in the little Citroen C2 at this stage. Their advantage would be over Joe Piggott and John Fellows, who were only 4 seconds back from the pair in the class and on the overall results. In Class F, it will be the lead for Matthew and Adrian Walk in the Fiesta. They needed that result for the Heart of England Championship, so they'd be keen to keep hold of that lead and keep their noses clean for a finish. Second in the class, though, were Adam Bickley and Richard Mills in the MG. 30 seconds back, not an impossible gap to make up, but it would take some strong stage times through the afternoon, that was for sure. And third place in the class would be Chris Worrell and Jonathan Hudson. A couple of positions further back on the overall times, but there was only 9 seconds between them by the midway point of the rally. It was a frustrating morning though for Kay Thompson and Reece Brooks, not in the fight that they'd wanted to be in at this stage. A misfire on the second stage causing them to slow down, limping the car through the final part of the stage and slipping down the order overall. In Class G, there'd be 2 crews this time out, and it'd been a lead for David Fox and Paul Price in the MG. They lie in 39th overall. This a class for road rally cars. A big performance given how standard the car was. It even still has the carpets. And they'd have a lead over this big Volvo of Bill Douglas and Andy O'Hanlon. The pair pushing that heavy car around the stages and entertaining the spectators probably as much as the 6R4 to 73rd overall for now. So with the morning stages complete here at the Cadwell Donington Stages Rally, the results are looking like this. An eventful and attrition-filled morning here at Donington Park then. We go into the afternoon stages. And in Class G, there'd be no change for Bill Douglas and Andy O'Hanlon. They take second in the class in that beautiful Volvo 244. That, of course, means no change to the class lead for David Fox and Paul Price in the Road Rally MG. They take the class win. Things in Class F remaining pretty much as they had through the morning as well, with Chris Worrell and Jonathan Hudson keeping hold of third to the finish. Second in the class ahead of them were Adam Bickley and Richard Mills, ending the rally with 36th overall. But taking victory and keeping things going in the right direction were Matthew and Adrian Walk, exactly what we said they needed to do. The Fiesta pair happy with a 34th place overall finish and what that meant for their Heart of England championship hopes as well. A bit of change in Class E for Harry Pinchin and Colin Jenkins. They, frustratingly for them, slipped down to third in the class by the finish. Still, a decent performance. It was still close as well. Joe Piggott and John Fellows moving up to take second in the class. A few overall positions between them, but on the timesheets, it was really close. Class C would see some change as well, one of those being George Clark and Adam Burkill, who bring the Mini Rally Challenge Cooper S into third place in the class by the end of the event. An impressive performance from George. Ahead of them will be Simon Belcher and Kerry Pullen. And they'd have almost half a minute of an advantage in that position as well, lying in 22nd overall. In the lead of the class, though, it was still a Stockdale BMW. This time, however, it was old man Martin Stockdale, Ross Hammond alongside, who lead the way, taking family honours and the class win in their BMW 1M. There's change in Class B as well, as event sponsor Luke Zedzikowski and Andrew Ford move up into third place in the class, putting that disastrous result behind them at Cadwell Park. A strong result for their first time out in four-wheel drive on a rally and the competitive debut for that Teguer Evo 9. In Class D, it was third place. Chris and Steve Grundy, they end the rally just outside the top 10 overall in 11th. And just ahead in the class, rounding out the top 10 overall, were Michael and Benjamin Jowers. The escort pair not feeling like they'd been going fast enough all day, but that very clearly wasn't the case. In 9th place overall, it would be the eventual Class E winners and an impressive performance for Chris Woodhouse and Lucy Wilding in the 208 R2. They held on to that position throughout the day, making it a strong end to the weekend in the Peugeot. A close finish and some more change in Class D, notably our class leaders in the morning, Joshua and Tamsin Davey, coming to a stop on the 4th stage, having to call it a day. A massive frustration for them. They're unable to work out the issue and have to see that fantastic result fall away. No one can take that performance from the first few stages away from them, though, of course. That, though, plays into the hands of this man, Tony Davies, Martin Davies alongside. Now moving up to that class lead in the shorter, stubbier Darien T9. And doesn't it look good? They kept hold of that to the finish, keeping the class win in their grasp and 8th overall. Just ahead on the overall results were Dave Jenkins and Philip Hopkins. It hadn't been a clean run, but it was Dave's first time in four-wheel drive. Then not many had got away with a clean run today anyway. They reached the end of the rally, 7th place overall, 2nd in the class. For Tony Robinson and Paul Spooner, it's a good enough result this weekend and another good haul of points to add to that finish last time out in 6th overall. Mark Jasper and Don Wyatt keep the 6R4 going with a slither of the 80s showing us how it should be done through the afternoon, keeping hold of that 5th place. A strong result for the pair on what is pretty much an occasional outing in that glorious car. No change for Sean and Colin Quigley. They couldn't quite get on terms with the front runners and get onto the podium, settling for 4th, but it was still a great result for them after not being at any of the previous rounds this season. Their campaign now underway. For the ever-entertaining John and Alex Stone, it will be the final step on the podium. And although John will be the first to say they don't like talking about it, this result does keep them in the lead of the championship standings going into the winter break, and I'm sure they'll enjoy that. There was frustration, though, for Michael Igo and Will Atkins. No coming back from that penalty. They do gain a bit of time back, 10 seconds in fact through the last stage, but not enough, having to settle for second. Still, it was a good result as far as the championship was concerned, and better, certainly, than that non-finish last time out at Cadwell Park. All of that means it's victory for John Griffiths and Emma Morrison. A really good result for them, one that leaves the championship wide open going into the new year. 6 more rounds remaining. So at the end of a pretty tricky Donington rally, the final results look like this.
Well, one heck of an adventure, whichever way you look at it, including an adventure of my own back in a rally car, and just a reminder of how it feels to be the other side of the windscreen and looking at a special stage live stream, sat in the queue for a rally stage. Thank you again to Spark Developments and to Rally Car Hire and to Julia Perry for that. And thank you for the competitors and the organisers and the marshals who gave us such amazing entertainment across the Wyedean, across both the circuit rounds and, of course, the wonderful Anglo Caledonian Rally. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Special Stage Rally Show in association with the Mini Rally Challenge. We'll see you soon.
Care 40 for Rateable Crest Titans.